Alright, so 7.3, this is part A, the section where you have to convert log to exponential form and one of the properties of logarithms. So, one of the transitional properties that you might want to have written down, because you do have to have it memorized, there's a lot of muscle memory here, guys, so you need to practice these and really think about how you're moving. You have a logarithm, and it's of some particular base, which we write as a little subscript. Now, inside of that logarithm, you're going to have a number. I'm going to call that n. And then the logarithm equals an answer. I'm going to call that a. This is what's known as logarithmic form. You can take that logarithmic form, watch the colors, Abruzzo, and you can transfer it to what's called exponential form. So you're going to use these same numbers that are in the problem, but the base of the logarithm becomes the base of the exponential problem. And then I just remember everything flip-flops. So the next thing I write down, this answer becomes an exponent. Oh, wrong color. That was supposed to be red. All right, this answer becomes an exponent. And then this problem equals what was inside of the logarithm originally. So that formula, it's difficult to memorize, but it's easy for you to get a little muscle memory as you move from term to problem to problem to problem. So definitely that's why we assigned you so much practice on this. And I hope you didn't fall for the old teenager thing where you try to just copy the answer key because you thought it was so easy, but it's not easy. You got to practice it. So like here, for instance, number 1, my base is 6. So when I go to rewrite it in exponential form, his base is also a 6. And then the answer to the logarithm is a 3. This becomes the exponent. And then it equals what was in the logarithm originally, which is a 216. So the answer to this question is now a 216. What I like about that first question is it's very logical. 6 to the 3rd power is 216. So if you have a numeric problem, you can easily check it on the calculator that you've rearranged it properly. Not so much if you have an algebraic one. Now for some reason, I can't go the other direction in the formula very easily because I just don't like it. So I have exponential form and I want to write logarithmic form, so I need to start by writing out the abbreviation for the logarithm function. So logarithm, and then his base is a 9 in the exponential question, which means the base of the logarithm is also a 9. I like to put parentheses around what's in the logarithm, but you don't have to. So the answer, 81, is now going to be in the logarithm, and then the exponent is actually the answer to the logarithm. So go figure. I don't know why going that direction is so hard for me, but it is. So that's one of the skills we ask for you, is just to rewrite it. And turns out your brain really only thinks in exponential form. It can't think like a logarithm. So when I look at number 9 and 10, 11 and 12, if I'm supposed to evaluate this without a calculator, that means I need to put it in brain-friendly notation. So we say, like, what does this equal? And you know what, instead of X, let me use a question mark. I think that helps. So think about it this way. Your base here is a 5, which means this is a base 5. Ooh, that was loud, sorry. And then, to what power is the question? What power would I have to use to get 5 to come out to an answer of 1? And this is a bit of a trick question, but you guys are pretty good about this in class. What power can I raise any number to and get an answer of 1? And the answer is the power of 0. So rearranging it to an exponential was the first question, and then could you think about that question? And yes, maybe you test it out on your calculator. It gets a little tricky, though, when they have fractions. So like, for instance, this question, you got a base 2 here. So 2 raised to what mystery power is going to give you an answer of 1 over 64. Now this is a little difficult. The issue is your exponent has to be negative. That's the only thing that's going to take a whole number of 2 and flip it around to a fraction. And then maybe I use a chart, or maybe I just test some things on my calculator, but let's see, 2 to the 5th power is 32, so 2 to the 6th power must be 64. So I guess it's negative 6. Again, something I could test on my calculator to make sure I was right. Okay, the inverse section. Remember, the inverse to a log is an exponential, and the inverse to an exponential is a log. So if you kind of remember that inherently, this is a really easy question. So the inverse function to this logarithm would be his exponential cousin. So an exponential that has the same base would be 2 to the x power. In Algebra 2, we give you really, really, really easy questions where you can just quickly rewrite them because there's no transformations in them. But technically what you're supposed to be doing is your steps for inverses, which, remember, your first step was to switch the x and y. So we would have rewritten it as x equals log base 2 of y. And then your second step would be to solve for y. So we're learning other methods for how to solve for y later on in the chapter, but for you guys right now, that's just as simple as rewriting it using your formula switch. So 2 to the x power equals y. And then, of course, you know, nobody likes equations backwards. The other thing we should get in the habit of doing, because it's inverse, we should call it y inverse, but whatever. That's a little too picky for Mrs. Abruzzo even. So when I look at number 21, that is exponential. So his inverse function would be a logarithm, and their bases should match. So his inverse should be a logarithm of base 6 of x. I think I've made a big deal about this in class, but it's still true on your retake. I'm very picky about the size of how you're writing and your handwriting on this section. I know, very ironic because it's me. But your subscripts are how you write your base. If your 6 looks just as big as the logarithm or the x, that's not a base. So you need to be very careful where and how you're writing it and just watch your handwriting. All right, good luck.